The opinions expressed on this program are those of the program hosts and guests and not necessarily those of this station, management, staff, or sponsors. WPSL does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WPSL.
It's 11:07 at WPSL 1590, talking the Treasure Coast. Time now for the Sun Palm Financial Broadcast with David Thomas Cummings, Esquire. Well, no, not quite. But
You can give me a couple of different little, titles if you want.
well, now wait a minute. You're what?
I've
British?
got a bunch of them. I've got a bunch of
You're
titles.
sort of British that you could.
Got a bunch of titles. Fun and joke aside, we are here on the Sun Palm Financial radio broadcast, and we are being heard worldwide. We're broadcasting out of Treasure Coast, Florida. We're heard on Alexa, Google Home, TuneIn app, all of those happy things. And today we're having a great conversation. It's going to be about something that's kind of the future as a lot of people see it, and that is the digital future of money. Yeah, so the digital future of currency, we're going to talk about crypto, we're going to be talking about various transaction mechanisms and kind of where things are going on this. So the first thing I like to do is, in case I make some financial advice or make a few pointers that you can take home with you, which I typically do, I like to get started by advising basic information here that the opinions contained in the broadcast have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable. They're also given for informational purposes only. And the information is not intended to be used as the sole financial basis for financial decisions or solicitation to sell. All right, so we got that out of the way. I'm here in the radio station with Mr. Greg Wyatt, Mr. Radio. I would say you've been doing this now how long, Greg? It's been
It's our 31st year here.
31st year at
On the Treasure Coast.
WPSL on the Treasure Coast.
Carol and I fled Los Angeles television news in 1993.
1993. Well, first of all, my hat's off to you and Carol, really to have served the community for so many years.
It has been fun.
Yeah, definitely been a good ride so far, and hopefully it's a ride that can continue. Now, when we're talking about money and we're talking about electronic currency and transactions and such, the first thing we probably should do is talk about the current way that money has changed hands and how it works and this sort of thing, and then the actual mechanisms of it, and then after that we'll kind of dip into the digital currency. We're going to talk about Bitcoin. We're going to talk about all these other types of things, and then what's happening at the central bank and how that's going to play out. All right, so how does it work on the mechanism? Now, for those of you who know me, spent many years in banking, retail banking specifically. So I started out at the kind of the lower levels of management, moved up to vice president in banking, retail banking. So I have a lot of experience on the inner workings of how that happens on the backside, and I'm going to try to demystify it and simplify it as much as I can for you. All
So
right?
can you turn that dollar bill in my pocket into $1 million?
I can if you come to Sun Palm Financial. I can do that.
I love it.
How'd you like that for a
Oh
plug?
man, that was quick. That was quick.
But when it comes to the actual mechanisms of how it works, your money, basically you put your money in a bank, right? Now it's converted, that money is converted into numbers on a digital balance sheet, right? In the good old days, you'd walk into the bank and they'd pull out a ledger, and when you took out money, they'd write how much you took out, and they would, balance how much you put in, that kind of stuff. Now it's all a digital balance sheet. So we're already kind of digital to begin with, right? Now, when you buy something or exchange your money for something of value, it's conducted in a few basic ways. Now, some of this most people get, but some may not, right? So, of course, cash. The second thing is a check, right? You write a check and you give it to somebody. A check is nothing more than a piece of paper until it clears, right? So cash is technically currency, right? It is value. based on the full faith credit of the United States government. But when you write a check, it's basically a written promise to pay until it clears. So the process is you write a check, I put it in my bank, this is the way it used to work and how it works now. The bank sends it through the central bank, through the reserve, and then to your bank, who says, yeah, the money's there, it's good, and then they send the money back through the same system. Now, this used to take days. Then a little while back in the 2000s, they created something called Check 21, and basically that's where it authorized banks to use the image of the check instead of actually passing the physical check through that whole process. And it worked as the same way. So when you walk in the bank, you run your check, they run it through this little machine. It's called a Micker reader. The ink on a check actually has a specific type of magnetic ink. So it reads that Micker line, and then Check 21 is scanned in, and then the money comes back to you. So this process actually happens pretty quickly. Of course, your bank doesn't tell you that because they want to float the funds for as long as they can, right? But it is a fairly quick process now. Another way that your money works, wire. You can go in and you can say, hey, I want to wire money from here to there. You fill out a wire form, authorization, and it goes, right? That takes about 1 business day that it can be recalled. So just because you get a wire doesn't mean it can't be recalled within 24 hours, something you may not have known. Yep.
I never heard of that.
That's right. So
I thought if you wired money, you wired money, period.
that's the common belief, but there is still a 24, and it also depends on different states have different rules and different countries have different rules. So this is where there's that 24-hour in case there's an error of correction that's needed or other kinds of things like this. I think it also has to do with the government has the opportunity to look at that transaction. ACH, Automated Clearinghouse. So this is where you get a direct deposit, for instance, into your bank account, and boom, they make it available, or they may not. Some banks make it available.
Percentages of availability.
Exactly. There you go. This one we all know, your debit card. You wipe in, you swipe the card, you punch in your PIN. Now, of course, they've got the tap method. And a chip in there to read it. We'll talk about that a little bit. Last but not least, other electronic transactions like Zelle, right? So basically, if I want to send you money and it's below a certain dollar amount, I can go into the account and send it through Zelle. Most banks are now offering this service, really handy dandy, right?
But our business bank won't take it.
Sometimes they won't. And part of that has to do with how they're paid. If it's a headache for them, and they're not getting paid anything, right? So there's always transaction fees, and this is how the banks make money. If you want to hear about the full way banks make money, go back to our Sun Palm Financial Facebook. We've got a video there that talks about the central bank and how banking works and all that. We talked about that a little while ago. But in this part of how banks make money, it's based on fees, right? Now, let's move to digital currency. What is digital currency? How's it work, and so forth? Well, back in the .com era, right, the digital purchasing online, when this started, there's a guy we all know of, Mr. Elon Musk, he and a partner, I believe, created something called PayPal. And what PayPal was, I'm going to kind of put it in terms that we can all understand. Basically, it was kind of the equivalent of a bank online where I could go and I can deposit money in my PayPal account, and then I can make a purchase online. Why would I do that? Well, back then, credit card fraud was huge. So if I gave a person my credit card information, they could wear it out. Or if I gave them my bank account information, they could wear it out, right? So by having a PayPal account, essentially I just deposit whatever amount in there, how little or great I wanted. And maybe if it was just for one specific transaction, I would put those credits on that PayPal account just for that transaction and make the purchase. And now I'm not worried about getting taken.
Yeah, we've used PayPal for years for credit cards.
Yeah. So this was kind of the forefront of digital currency and how it kind of started, really. So as an honorable mention, I thought that'd be kind of the best way to kind of describe it, right? Now, think about it for just a minute. When I go buy something in person, I get to look at you, you get to look at me. I hand you a physical cash or a physical check or physical card. Another way is through the banking, I can write a money order, right? Or I can get an official check, certified check from the bank, which is good supposedly as regular funds. These are the ways we use to conduct business. But now with online transactions, we don't get to see who's on the other end of that thing. And people lose their money all the time because they're getting played, right? We've all gotten the email from Nigeria I did recently about my great aunt who died in somewhere in Timbuktu, and she left me $25 million. Right?
Yeah, Prince Wyatt
whoever
contacted us. Yes.
Something like this. So anyway, so the idea is when you're doing these conducting these transactions online, what was a safe way to do it, right? So PayPal was the spearheaded that, and there were some others out there that kind of took the lead on these things. And that's how it was done. Now, how did PayPal make money? Well, they charge a little fee for the transaction. So basically, they did the exact same thing a bank does, right? They conduct a transaction for you. They take a small percentage, right? So that's kind of where it got off the ground. And then up to that point, it was just credit cards and whatever to facilitate the transaction. Now, cryptocurrency. We're going to get into that next, okay? If you're interested in this topic and you'd like to reach out to us, the number here, 772-340-1590. We'd like to hear your concerns or issues or ideas on digital transactions and currencies if you want to reach out to us.
Tom Brady's on line one. Let's talk about crypto.
Exactly. We're also on Facebook Live if you have questions. So right here, cryptocurrency, but what is it, right? So it's basically a digital virtual type of currency. It's secured by cryptography, which makes it nearly impossible to counterfeit. So that's one big benefit, or to double spend, because once it's spent, right? Most cryptocurrencies exist on a decentralized network and use something called blockchain technology. And it's distributed through a ledger enforced by a network of multiple computers, right? So in other words, that blockchain, which we're going to define in a minute, is spread out over multiple areas to where your currency is not locked down into one specific location, right? So, and there's a series of mechanisms in this to where you can't counterfeit it. It can be authenticated through this blockchain, and then it's legit. Right?
But can it be hacked?
Right. So we're going to get to that part in the end. How safe is this whole concept as we're moving forward? Yeah. Anyway, the defining feature of cryptocurrencies, they're not issued by any central authority. So basically, theoretically, it makes them immune from government interference or manipulation. This is something that made it very attractive to people, right? Back as it was first getting off the ground, people understood, hey, I can make a purchase or a transaction, and it's kind of between me and that person, right? And the only way that anyone would really know about that transaction is if they were directly involved in the transaction, right? So cryptocurrency is a form of digital asset, and it's based on that network that's decentralized, right? Spread out across a lot of computers. The structure allows them to exist outside of government control, central authorities. Now, some experts believe blockchain and related technologies will disrupt many industries, including finance and law. I would agree with that. So when we get into what blockchain is, it will make more sense to you, right? Now, the advantages of cryptocurrency, of course, it's cheaper and faster money transfers, right? You don't have to jump through so many hoops to get your money from point A to point B, because it doesn't have to go through so many different regulatory organizations or even governments. So for instance, if I'm sending money from US dollar to, let's say, Switzerland, to the Swiss franc, it's got to go through my central bank, then go over there, go through a currency exchange, et cetera, et cetera. Well, in this case, it bypasses all of that, right? So that's one of the advantages. Now, some of these decentralized systems, what's great is that they don't collapse at a single point of failure. So if the my central bank were to go down, that'd be all she wrote for, my availability to money. Over in the crypto sector, not the case because it's spread out, right? So disadvantages, of course, there's price volatility. It goes up and down based on whatever day and whatever value things are moving at. Of course, there's criminal activity is happening. A lot of criminals were using crypto to make transactions because it's kind of off the grid, if you want to look at it that way. Last but not least, the other concern is hacking. You mentioned this. Now, how safe is it from hacking? Pretty safe because it's spread out over multiple places. But my concern, a greater concern maybe, is if there's an event where someone does an EMP, electromagnetic pulse. In other words, if I'm going to knock out your entire power grid, right? How do I
know
access,
where you're going
how do I
with
access the
that.
funds, right? I can't even get on my computer kind of thing. So even if it's secured on that side, I won't be able to get to it on my side kind of thing. So those are just a couple of thoughts as we're getting into this. Now, there's a couple of cryptocurrencies out there that are very popular. Of course, the common names that come up, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Ethereum, Tether. There's several. Those are some of the ones that people recognize right away. But there are actually hundreds of cryptocurrencies that are being developed. Some are having different ideas than others. And it's kind of like a token, right? So people, they're like, okay, well, how does this work? So like, you go to Chuck E. Cheese, right? You go to the little machine and you put in your dollar bill
Yeah.
and it spits out 4 tokens, or maybe 3, right? So you get these tokens and you go and you say, hey, I want something of value. I want to go ride on that little ride over there. You put your token in, you get to ride, right? You want to buy a pizza, you can maybe use tokens to buy a pizza. I don't know. I think they still take cards. But anyway, you get my point. So you exchange your token for that service or that value. It's the same way with Bitcoin. You're taking your cash and you're transferring it into these tokens, which then exchange for services.
But there's no FDIC insurance.
Exactly. So that's another thought, right? So this is an emerging technology. It's been going on for some time now, but it's really picking up. So it can be found almost everywhere. There's hundreds of new cryptos coming out and different tokens that are coming out. So the idea is converting something of value into a digital currency or token, and then exchanging it on the other side for something of value, a product, service, or physical cash in some cases if you're cashing out. Now, we're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about FTX. We're going to talk about the blockchain and some of these things. All right. Dreams. What do your dreams look like? And how far are you willing to chase them before giving up? Or are you willing to stay the course to achieve them? Do you dare believe? Are you willing to work for them, strive hard, to never give up until they are realized? Are your dreams worth chasing? Well, if they are, welcome to Sun Palm Financial, a place where dreams become a reality. Whether your dream is to grow and to thrive towards the good life, or to simply experience freedom through financial security, come share your dreams with us. Sun Palm Financial. Invest, grow, protect. sunpalmfinancial.com.
Old money. Why is old money respected more than new? It's not because new money spends their fortunes outrageously and the old money gets jealous. Old money is respected because it has grown over time and is maintained over many, many generations. You see, most new money will be blown eventually or wasted by the second generation, and the descendants of new money just get poorer and poorer after that. But at Sun Palm Financial, we'll help you to create generational wealth that will grow with each new chapter. So if you've been fortunate enough to come into some new money, call right now to schedule your free consultation so that you can join the old club. Sunpalm Financial. Invest, grow, protect. sunpalmfinancial.com.
All right, welcome back to the Sunpalm Financial Broadcast, where we talk all things money. Today's topic is digital currency and the future of money. If you have any questions or input about this topic, you can reach us at 772-340-1590. That's 772-340-1590. You can also hop online to Facebook Live and send your questions that way. One of the questions that has come up here is, how safe is crypto? How does it work? Everyone's heard about FTX and what happened there, but we're going to kind of touch on that briefly before we continue. So essentially, what was FTX? Well, FTX is what's called an exchange. So that's sort of like a digital bank where you park your crypto and facilitate transactions. Okay, that's the short version of it. There were two big ones for some time. It was FTX, which is the one that went south, and then CoinDesk, which was probably number one. FTX was probably number two. So these were two competitors for this space. Now, FTX and CoinDesk, essentially the way these guys make money is they charge a small fee to convert your coin into something of value, right? So FTX competitive futures, for instance, and spot market trading fees range from 0.04% to 0.07% for market takers. And based on the maker-taker model, if I'm speaking over your head, just bear with me. Basically, they're leveraging tokens that carried a creation and redemption fee of 0.10%, daily management fee 0.03%. So what we're basically saying is every time there's a transaction that happens, there's a percentage that's taken or a fraction of a percentage. So it's the equivalent of, if you're using your debit card, right, the owner, which would be Visa, MasterCard, these kind of guys, they charge a fee every time you swipe your card. They charge it to the vendor, right? And it might be a percentage or it might be a dollar amount, right? And so that way the requested transaction is converted into the value for your purchase, right? Now, don't want to go too deep into this stuff, but FTX, the issue there was they had another company called Alameda. And basically what was happening, it was run by the same people. Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried was the guy who was running this operation with his little team of juveniles. Not really. They were probably...
It was close.
It was pretty darn close.
It was pretty close.
And they set up operations offshore, which made it a little more... they avoided a lot of regulation. They paid a lot of famous people money to promote the heck out of this stuff because they were trying to move into the number one spot. But what was happening is, as people were putting their moving their digital currency into the FTX platform, Sam Bankman-Fried was actually using that money to fund his lifestyle.
He's buying property in the Bahamas.
Yeah, and he's trying to, and in some cases he claims at least that he was trying to invest it as well to make money back. But in the end, these people didn't give him the permission, and it was done without their knowledge. And at the end, it was just a giant digital Ponzi scheme, really, to simplify it. And so what ends up happening is $8 billion is lost, right? Now, it's also important to note that because this is decentralized, there were some money laundering allegations that were out there, significant amount. And what's even crazier is the last election, 2020 election, it is alleged that just a huge swath of politicians were getting funded through these back office channels. So for instance, if you're going to give me a campaign donation, there's a limit to it. But if you went this route over here and washed the money over there and Ryan and went into 5 million places, and then it comes to me, maybe it can be hidden that I'm bought and paid for, as these politicians, sometimes can be. Now, blockchain, let's talk about this. So what is blockchain? So this is how crypto is stored and functions basically. It's kind of similar to a bank. So the central appeal and functionality of Bitcoin and other currencies is this blockchain technology, right? So as the name indicates, a blockchain, it's essentially a connected sets of blocks of information. So this block of information, this block of information, this all in different locations.
All on computers.
So if you hacked and you got this one, you wouldn't get the rest. If you got this one, you wouldn't get those, right? So it's blocks of information kept on an online ledger, and each block contains a set of transactions that have been independently verified by each validator on the network, right? So every new block generated must be verified before being confirmed, making it almost impossible to forge transactional history. So this is what makes it, kind of a really sought after idea. It's a very secure way of doing business. For instance, if I write you a check, you don't know if that check's good until it clears, right? Or if I, send you a transactional wire, we talked about this, and maybe it was done fraudulently, and you might get the money or it shows up and then it gets held or seized, right? So the contents of the online ledger must be agreed upon by the network of individuals or computers that maintain that ledger, right? So most of the time when you hear about cryptocurrency, you hear about the coin's name. However, of course, the coin names differ and the coin types differ. So they're not all exactly the same, but the basic operation is still the same with the blockchain. So here's some different types of mechanisms, right? And again, I apologize in advance. I'm trying to bring this down to very understandable level, but some of it's going to be a little bit over the head. All right, so utility aspects, right? So there's those of you in the tech field, you have XRP and ETH. Those are two examples of utility tokens. They serve as specific functions on the respective blockchains. Then you have transactional. So this is tokens designed to be used as a payment method. Bitcoin is the most well-known of these. Governance, right? So these tokens represent voting or other rights on a blockchain, such as Uniswap. And the platform, so the tokens support applications built to use the blockchain, such as Solana. And then security tokens. So the tokens represent ownership of an asset, such as a stock that has been tokenized. The value is transferred to the blockchain, and the MS token, as an example, would be a securitized token. To break this down, basically it's like when you buy stock, I give you a stock certificate, right? Very similar, but on a digital sense, right? So that as
I can't hold anything in my hand.
Yeah, so exactly. But you do have the authentication, which means that it's yours and yours alone, right? So you can gain partial ownership of some of these things too. So it may not be a single owner, might be fractional. So anyway, so basically what's happening is crypto is creating its own fiat currency, right? But it's decentralized, and the exchanges are acting as their own bank, and it's totally unregulated in many markets. So it's out of the control of government and central banks. So in other words, you convert US dollars into crypto, then you can buy, sell, and exchange without government or central bank regulating it or having any say-so, and in some cases not even really knowing about it unless they're involved in the transaction. So if you think about it that way, it's attractive because you have privacy in your transactions, but there also, if it's misused or used for criminal activity, there's that negative aspect of it there. So as we kind of go to the next part, we're going to hit another break, and then we're going to focus the latter part of the show on what's happening next. So what is happening next? I'm going to set it up for this before the break. The government understands that they're losing control with digital currency being out there. So what do you think their next move is going to be? They want to create or digitize the US dollar. Other countries want to digitize their currency. That way they can regain control, because that's what this is about when it comes to the transactions and use of money and the whole central banks. is control of the flow of the money. So you've heard the golden rule, right? Well, in this case,
Yes.
their version of the golden rule is he who has the gold rules the world kind of thing, or makes the rules. So when we come back from the break, we're going to kind of focus on the central bank and their digital currency.
Dreams. What do your dreams look like? And how far are you willing to chase them before giving up? Or are you willing to stay the course to achieve them? Do you dare believe? Are you willing to work for them, strive hard, to never give up until they are realized? Are your dreams worth chasing? Well, if they are, welcome to Sun Palm Financial, a place where dreams become a reality. Whether your dream is to grow and to thrive towards the good life, or to simply experience freedom through financial security, come share your dreams with us. Sun Palm Financial. Invest, grow, protect. SunPalmFinancial.com.
Old money. Why is old money respected more than new? It's not because new money spends their fortunes outrageously and the old money gets jealous. Old money is respected because it has grown over time and is maintained over many, many generations. You see, most new money will be blown eventually or wasted by the second generation, and the descendants of new money just get poorer and poorer after that. But at Sun Palm Financial, we'll help you to create generational wealth that will grow with each new chapter. So if you've been fortunate enough to come into some new money, call right now to schedule your free consultation so that you can join the old club. Sun Palm Financial. Invest, grow, protect. SunPalmFinancial.com.
All right, welcome back to the Sun Palm Financial broadcast. I'm your host, D. Thomas Cummings, and we're talking about the future of currency, in particular, digital currency. I'm here with engineer and Mr. WPSL, Greg Wyatt, in the house today. You know, there was a movie I just quoted to Greg. If you've never seen this, you must see this. Now, this was regarding the mortgage-backed securities crisis in 2008. The film is called Margin Call. Margin Call. If you've never seen it, you must watch it. Also, there's a scene in there which is just spectacular because it kind of gets you in the mindset of the way some people think. There's a scene for Margin Call. It's called It's Just Money. And yeah, check out that scene. You can YouTube it. Margin Call, It's Just Money. Amazing scene because it really undermines and demonstrates the current view of money. So remember, we used to be on the gold standard and we didn't have enough gold to back our debt. And the government actually banned citizens, made it outlawed for you to possess any gold back in that time frame. I don't know if you know this, yeah. So people had to turn in their gold so that the government could support itself. Well, what ends up happening is they eventually, shift to something called a fiat currency. The central banks were established. So now it's not backed by anything but the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. Great book on that. You should check it out. Creature from Jekyll Island. Really interesting book on that topic. And we talked about it a little while back. So now we're facing a new challenge. So now we're in debt, 33 trillion, I think was the last number.
Yeah, goes up every second.
Yeah, so some insane amount of money, and our GDP is clearly not going to be able to catch up to that. So now there's conversations about how do we regain control? Well, basically we convert the US dollar to a digital currency, right? Will this wash away all the other money? You know, the other debts that we have, that's a good question. But what is this? So it's commonly referred to as CBDC. CBDC. That's central bank digital currency. So if you hear me reference that, that's what I'm talking about. I'm going to be quoting some great research from Catherine Thorbeck, CNN Business. Basically, what happened is in the United States, the pandemic propelled demand for cashless payment methods. Isn't it funny how COVID prompted every crazy change that we're having in society now? The whole Great Reset is playing out before our very eyes, right? So many and Main Street investors have embraced the cryptocurrency idea, putting pressure on the government not to fall behind in this trend. David Yermak, the finance department chair at New York University Stern School of Business, he told CNN Business this quote. He says that it is, quote, inevitable the entire world will be using money in this way. So,
Wow, really?
really, and
Well, aren't there countries in South America now that are utilizing that?
it's starting to go global, and China is the world's second largest economy by GDP. They soft launched their digital currency in January.
Oh,
Yeah,
never
and
heard of that.
yeah, and so that was a big concern for them because now they're ahead of the game, right? And so President Biden made an executive order regarding digital assets back a little while ago, basically placing urgency, quote, placing urgency in research and development on the potential United States CBDC, central bank digital currency, should issuance be deemed in the national interest. That word or phrase is very important, in the national interest, according to the White House, right? So when someone says it's a national interest, that gives it a certain degree of priority, and certain laws can be bypassed and rules can be bypassed. For instance, if it's a national security emergency, FBI agents can do things and federal agents can do things that they couldn't do, right? Or if it's a situation where it's to declare a state of emergency, right? Suspend certain rights and whatnot. So, when you see that phrase come out, that's one step below that, right? Which is, hey, this is so important that we're just going to put it at the forefront, and who cares what anybody thinks about it. Now, right now we've moved beyond the conceptual discussions of CBDC, and we're now in the phase of experimentation. This is a recent quote, and central banks are rolling up their sleeves, familiarizing ourselves with the bits and bytes of digital money. So the Federal Reserve defines this currency. Here's how they define it. It's a digital form of central bank money that is widely available to the general public. Widely available to the general public. A key difference from current forms of digital cash in the bank account or payment app is that the money would be a liability of the Fed and not the commercial banks. So basically, the way money works, as we talked on one of our earlier shows, the money comes from the Federal Reserve, goes to the commercial bank, and then goes to, you and I who borrow it or whatever, and goes back in reverse, right? So in this case, there would be no commercial bank in this equation, right? So that's pretty important. It's actually very important because think about it. Our banks are the central part of our financial services. So the money would be the liability of the Fed and not the commercial banks. This is why it's called the central bank money. This means it would be an actual US dollar in digital form and not an investment in cryptocurrency or holding like with PayPal. So what they're saying is it could provide safe digital payment options for households and businesses as the payment system continues to evolve, and may result in faster payment options between countries. So basically, they already realize nobody's doing the transactions the old-fashioned way, which costs a lot of money and fees and takes a long time. People are using these digital routes already to do this, so they're trying to then be have at least a function of this to be able to do it.
Well, our business, for instance,
Yep.
we used to keep Federal Express trucks in our parking lot. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
we used to send stuff and receive stuff by FedEx.
Yeah.
If we do one a year now, everything's electronic.
It is. And so, how much faster can it go? Well, apparently they're trying to make it even faster now. So, basically, think about this. What are some implications of this? Well, maybe no more Visa or MasterCard,
Whoa.
right? So
Wait a minute.
you're not
Really?
using a card to send money now. If it's a digital currency, you can go in and just boop, and it goes to another country. So these intermediaries could be affected. Of course, the liability falls on the Fed, not the commercial banks. So the banks aren't doing anything to get a percentage. That's a question. Will it invalidate the need of banks? Right?
Well, I was just going to ask you that question.
Right,
Why
so-
have a bank if
Yeah, so there's a lot of question marks on this. Now, those of you who live here with me in Florida, we've actually, through the legislature, banned this type of currency. So CBDC is banned in the state of Florida as it stands. So kind of interesting. So why would the government or the state of Florida ban this practice, right? So, well, there's some key considerations that we're going to talk about. One is to preserve the privacy of citizens and maintain the ability to combat illicit finance. That's what they claim. But the truth is the government would know every single transaction you make without getting a warrant to your current bank. So if you send money here or send money there, I mean, it's going right through, you know, Federal Reserve, which is not necessarily the government, but it's connected to these folks in a co-joined relationship. And why is this a big deal? Well, I'll just give you, for instance, January 6th. We've all heard about when folks got mad at the government and ran up there to the Capitol. Basically, the FBI reaches out to several banks and says, hey, we want to know what all the firearm transactions were within this time frame. Just a blanket, not specific people, but just contacts the bank, says, we want this. We want this information. And they provided it. So this is kind of scary.
did they say that was an emergency situation?
That's a
They had
good
to have that?
question. It's possible. It's very possible. But here again, the government just blanket, gets a bunch of information. So everybody knew the government could sift through this data and find out, whatever. And they did this with information too. Let's not forget Elon Musk, when he bought Twitter, discovers there's 80 FBI agents stationed in Twitter moderating and dictating information. So Big Brother's here, man. So really, do you really want government knowing every single transaction you make? Like right now, the way it works is if you're filling out you're getting money more than $10,000, you'll have to fill out a currency transaction report at your bank. If you do too many of these, they might send a suspicious activity report. But this is all the banks, sending information to the government, and it goes to FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. But in this case, it would be available to them instantaneously. Now, the truth is why this is a bit of a concern, right? So, first of all, it would specifically affect everyday Americans as your transactions get swept through with AI, for instance. AI would sweep through all the transactions and maybe identify specific things for the government. And for instance, you have a certain amount of money that you made on that weekend doing your garage sale, right? Well, now the government's going to know about that, right? And that's income that you did not report on your tax return. So this $33 trillion, we got to get rid of it somehow. You see where it's going? And they'll squeeze you for more taxes. There was recently, and it got so much of an upheaval that they dropped the idea, but the government Biden was going to demand every transaction deposit, $600 or more, in your bank account would be reported to the federal government. Crazy, $600, right? So the other concern is as we're seeing this massive expansion of government, and expenses, It's got to be paid for. So it's definitely a way to squeeze people for more tax dollars. The other thing that's a concern to me is they could turn you off instantly. Bam. 1 minute you've got your money available, and next minute the government can just turn you off. You can neither buy nor sell. Creepy, huh? So maybe if you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, you'll be canceled. Bam. Or, then you correct and you make a public apology, and then they'll turn your money back on, kind of thing, right? These are some real concerns because it's stuff we're already seeing happen. Do you remember you couldn't even get on an airplane to travel in certain situations, or be an airline pilot, or be a nurse in certain situations, or even have a job unless you got the jab back during COVID?
Yeah.
Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
That was a heck of a thing. So,
Well, my old place, ESPN,
yeah,
they fired a bunch of people because they wouldn't get a shot.
right. So if we can look at the track record recently, in particular under this administration, how they have essentially, some people would refer to it as weaponized government, right? There's a lot of conversations right now. The new phrase is lawfare, right? If I don't like you, right, and you're a Republican, for instance, you're Donald J. Trump, I'm going to go to the most Democrat-run, city in the whole country, and I'm going to file a suit against you there, or I'm going to file criminal charges against you there, where 99% of the people voted against you, right? That way, I can assure myself that I will get a conviction, right? This is terrible. This is the kind of things that are being alleged right now. And frankly, seeing how some of this is playing out, it's giving an indication that that is legitimately happening as an election interference type of situation, right? Now, it can also go in reverse, right? So this is the thing, when you start going down these banana republic roads, man, it's not going to stop in just one party. It's going to shift back, the wind blows both ways.
It's a tennis match then.
Absolutely. And do we want to be involved in the clash of the titans? How about we just vote the right person in, right? Without any election interference or whatever. And at that point, we kind of see how things play out. And if they suck, guess what? We'll vote them out and get a new person in there, right? So these are some of the reasons why Florida has banned CBDC. Privacy concerns, the concerns about the ability to cut off your money, just bam, cut it right off. Also, where's the future going to go on this, right? So for instance, if the government was forcing you to get a shot, right, vaccine or whatever, we now have chips in our debit cards, and we walk up and we just tap it. We just put beep, and next thing you know, your transaction happened. Well, what if the government transfers to this digital currency and demands another shot? But this time it's to put that chip in your hand or put that chip somewhere for you to make your monetary transaction, right? This is biblical creepy. But it's
This is so
it is,
unbelievable.
but it's here. It is upon us, right? And so these are some of the concerns that people have. So I understand kind of where the emerging technology is going and why. So what's ironic about this digital space, the digital currencies, the Bitcoins and the Dogecoins, all of this was created to step out of government control, to not have the government's control in your life in this space. And then what's being it's being turned into as more control over your money, more control over your access, more control over, how money flows. Because like we said, the golden rule for these people is he who has the gold makes the rules. So this is a big discussion. And this all seems to be the direction of future currency. There's another conversation that's happening, which is if it goes to convert to digital currency, would it be a one world money system? For instance, now we're a US dollar and our dollar is valued at X, right? Another country's dollar is valued at Y. Well, what happens if it goes digital and then it's just equivalent across the board? There's no more foreign exchange, right? It would become a one world money system that everyone operates on no matter where you go. And if you're not in that system, you can't buy or sell. Like I said, biblical level creepy on this stuff. And then there's one more step of creepy that I'm going to go before I leave you with a nice couple of thoughts. The last part of the creepy is this. AI is operating already in this space, automated intelligence. So it's going to be scanning transactions. It's going to be doing this, that, and the other. And with the concerns of AI right now, the big topic to the people who have even created it and are warning people is, hey, this thing can become self-aware, or is already technically self-aware. And then once it's self-aware and finds a better way to do something, it just goes right around people, bypasses people. That creates a whole new world where the control that government thought they had, they may end up not having control. So would the AI run everything? It's possible. So, and of course, we talked about the big concerns with EMPs as a method of attack on a country, or to knock out their power grid through hacking or whatever. You can cripple a whole nation this way. So it might be a good idea to rethink this. It might be a good idea to stay with some physical form of currency. It's definitely, there are some current concerns with how that would play out from a national security standpoint. And the United States is the leader of the free world, and so therefore we have a say-so in this and a way to direct people. Now, if you'd like to talk about a safe place to park your money, reach out to me. I'm at sunpalmfinancial.com. You can also call me, 561-783-3334. And we have places where we can park your money that's outside of the banks, that's outside of the mainstream. Good returns, very safe, talking about things like annuities and so on, insurance products and so forth. And we could park you over there and hopefully wait this problem out. But give us a call, 561-783-3334. And thanks for tuning in today on the Sun Palm Financial broadcast.
All right, have a good week. Wow, a lot to digest.
Scary.
Woohoo!
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.